Hello and welcome to IndiaPostLive.com, India's first live and interactive news conversation web TV. I am Prachi Chatanya. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cabinet, 25% of it is made up of women. It'll be interesting to see what expectations are riding on these women ministers from an age group of 38 to about 74. We'll have to see in the days ahead what they bring to the table as representatives of their population. To give us more insight and perspective on this topic, we have joining us in the studio for the conversation Ms. Namita Kohli. She's a special correspondent with Hindustan Times, and Mr. Sanjeev Singh, senior journalist. Thank you so much, both of you. We also have very interesting guests joining us via Google Hangout. Ms. Monobina Gupta, who is a senior editor with the DNA newspaper. We also have Ms. Talat Aziz, an activist joining us from Gorakhpur, and Ms. Vichitra Sharma. She's a freelance journalist. Thank you all, the ladies, for joining us. I'll come to Ms. Namita first. We'll talk about the key candidates, the ones who have a lot of experience, such as Sushma Swaraj, Najma Heptullah. Definitely, what do you think what kind of expectations are riding on these women cabinet ministers?
So I think to begin with, ever since the 2012 December rape case, the discourse of gender justice has been really high, in mainstream media and also in civil society, political circles and so on. Political parties, as is expected of them, have clearly taken on this rhetoric of gender justice and kind of trying to target the constituency of women, which is more than half or maybe just about half and so on. So I think for women's groups and people fighting for women's rights and feminists and so on, is there a cause to cheer? I'd put it that way. So I'd say yes and no. Yes, because having so many women or female faces in the cabinet is indicative of a certain kind of liberal feminism that concentrates on representation of women.
Right.
So we should have women in politics and
leadership
corporates.
roles.
Right. So that kind of women's empowerment, and no, because if we go by the kind of statements that some of these ministers or women of BJP have made, kind of leads us to believe that their model of gender justice or women's empowerment is sort of conservative. So whether this will lead to any kind of structural changes in policies for women or making politics women friendly, I would not
hold your reservations.
Yeah, I would hold my reservation. And I think we also, BJP has had 33% reservation for women throughout the party. So this is one of their ways of trying to put them up in the scheme of things and saying, oh look, we are kind of giving women voice and so on. But they've also been known, and some of these women have made such statements which lead us to believe that they, their idea of women's empowerment is relegated to the discourse of protection. So, women need protection in public spaces and so on. And private space, well, they would not really like to touch on that.
Right.
So, I think that is, that's sort of
your point on that. I'll bring in Monobina at this point. Monobina, your first thoughts. Is it time to cheer? Of course, Namita has her reservations. What are your thoughts? I believe there's an audio problem.
Unmute the mic.
Could you just unmute the mic, please, Monobina? Right, I'll play the first graphics here for Sushma Swaraj, elected 7 times as Member of Parliament and 3 times as Member of the Legislative Assembly. We have the graphics here for our viewers. At the age of 25, she became Haryana's youngest cabinet minister and has also served as Chief Minister of Delhi. I'll get in Monobina at this point. Monobina? Sanjeev, your thoughts for Sushma Swaraj in particular?
You see, if you look at the cabinet ministers, all of them are seasoned politicians, at least 5 to 6 terms. I mean, apart from Najma Heptullah, who's been in the Rajya Sabha, I think all the others are more or less people who have some sort of connect with the masses. And it's basically Narendra Modi's stamp, as far as we can say. It's one of his ways of sending that message across. And, we've seen the UPA government, often talk about, RSS and its, ideology which is veered towards men. But you see what he's done in the past 1 week. He's installed Anandiben Patel as Chief Minister, first woman Chief Minister in Gujarat. And now you have 1 out of every 4 cabinet ministers is a woman. So I think, he's just trying to send the message across and give that sort of impression that, this government is not going to be a retrograde government like what most people think or the critics have been saying. So I think it's pretty conscious. It's a conscious effort on Modi's part to ensure that, gender distribution, as far as gender discrimination goes, there no one can point fingers at him.
Right. What about Vichitra? I'll ask Vichitra to share her views at this point. What are your thoughts about this women representative cabinet?
I think it's very good. Very strong, very powerful women. You see these personalities. You've seen them on TV. Smriti Irani, very professional, very forceful. Sushma Swaraj, who speaks so well in public. She knows her issues well. Then you have Uma Bharti talking about she gets water resources. She's very competent to handle that feat. You have all of the in fact,
I think there's a bit of a technical problem there. I apologize. I'll try and get...
Gandhi has proved herself very well in Parliament, and
I'll try and get Monobina at this point. Monobina, do you think it's... Miss Talat Aziz, I think we seem to have a technical problem. Miss Aziz, do you feel it's mere tokenism then by Narendra Modi, or is it something beyond that? We've lost that connection, unfortunately. I believe I'll just get Namita to share her thoughts. Let's talk about Sushma Swaraj in specific, because a graphic played there is talking about considering that she was a very vocal opposition or a critic of Narendra Modi as the PM candidate. Do you think it was only meant to pacify her, to give her the cabinet berth?
I think that would be a little out of my league to say what kind of political negotiations would have gone, but I was reading in the papers that it's being said that old timers have been tried to accommodate, and so Modi has tried to kind of bring in everyone and sort of keep them happy and so on. So there might be certain political calculations to get Sushma Swaraj in, but seen from entirely say gender perspective, I am not sure how to or how much happy one should be, considering Sushma Swaraj made the Zinda Lash statement during the aftermath of the gang rape, and a lot of women's groups had criticized her that you cannot call a victim a Zinda Lash, and kind of sort of blaming the victim, or sort of reiterating a societal stereotype of women, of rape victims as honor tied to family honor and so on. So some of these women, obviously now these women don't have portfolios which are specific to women's issues, and so their relative expertise in conducting themselves and taking strong decisions and so on would be a matter of speculation, in my opinion. Perhaps more seasoned political analysts would have a say on their style of functioning and so on.
Sanjeev, do you think, considering her experience as INB minister before, now she's getting Ministry of External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, she's definitely seasoned, like you said. Do you then feel that there is, like you said, there's a message that the Narendra Modi government wants to send out, but do you think then they will talk about the women's reservation bill? Will it actually, translate into executing women's issues?
Well, that's going to be the test for the Modi government, because if you talk in terms of the kind of political message that has gone, I mean, Sushma Swaraj has not exactly been one of the big fans of Narendra Modi that we've seen. But so that's a gamble that Modi has taken politically, and he's given her that all-important portfolio, Minister of External Affairs. But the other, and you look at the others, you look at someone
Uma
like
Bharti, we'll have that playing
yeah, so
on
it's
the screen. Uma
I think
Bharti.
I think it's still too early to say, but yes, the onus will be on these cabinet ministers to ensure that at least they can put their right step ahead as far as when you compare them to the UPA government. Otherwise, it will just be mere tokenism.
Right, and what Vichitra was also pointing out, Uma Bharti unsuccessfully contesting her first parliamentary elections in 1984. Then in 89, she contested the Khajuraho seat. We are giving a background profile of these women cabinet ministers. She retained it with the elections conducted in 91, 96 and 98, and later on switching constituencies won the Bhopal seat. She's also led the BJP to a 3/4 majority in the Madhya Pradesh Assembly. Definitely an old timer in the party for BJP, very vociferous on women's right issues. Namita, any hopes?
Also, I think while you were talking about several of these women, I was just trying to understand that let's just for a minute think the kind of women they represent for us. So Sushma Swaraj, TV visuals of her celebrating Karwa Chauth and wearing sindoor and that kind of reiteration of a certain family or woman,
Oriented.
family or whatever, Hindu, let's say Hindu family oriented woman. Uma Bharti, again, a sort of divisive figure, also active in the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. Smriti Irani, she's played the ideal Bahu. She's
Her
been,
screen persona.
yeah, and I mean, she's not kind of made any, in my understanding, any conscious attempts to, distance herself from that kind of image. She is the ideal Bahu for a lot of middle class, audience. So I think there is a certain kind of women. I mean, let's say the BJP and the Sangh Parivar have never been. I mean, they've not been. Like, oh, we don't care about our women. They've been outfits like this. Mahila Morcha, the RSS has Sevika Samiti, VHP has Durga Vani. So they all have their women outfits in place, and they've all kind of sort of earmarked a role for their women because, in that larger scheme of things, women are for them important, flag bearers of the family, of patriarchy, of the household, and so on.
I'll just bring in Monobina again. We'll try and get that connection. Monobina, you're listening into the discussion. Do you think it's... I think there's a network problem with Monobina's connection. An audio problem again. We'll try and see if we can get Vichitra Mishra. There seems to be a huge connectivity problem. Well, we can't completely depend on technology though. Monobina, can you hear us now?
She can hear us, but we
yes,
can't
there
hear.
seems to be an audio problem from her side. I apologize to our viewers, but we'll try and play Smriti Irani's graphic at this point since Namita has spoken about Smriti. So Smriti Irani, finalist for the Femina Miss India 98. She made her debut on television in Aatish, and then most famous for her role as Tulsi Virani in Ekta Kapoor's production Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, the ideal Bahu image that she takes forward and portrays. Irani joined BJP in 2003, of course. She has been appointed as the National Secretary in 2010 and part of the Maharashtra Youth Wing as well. So she's actually travelled across India trying to garner a lot of youth votes, a lot of women vote bank, and use a targeted approach to get those people. I'll see if Miss Talat Aziz. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I never got your question, please.
Ma'am, your thoughts about 25% of Narendra Modi cabinet made up of women now, and key portfolios also going to them.
I'm a little doubtful of the 25%. I think 11% women are in the parliament and 16% representation has been given Is it 16% or 25? I'm a little doubtful to
Cabinet is
In the cabinet, it is
6 out of 23.
that. 6 out of 44.
23. Ma'am, that's the Union Council. That will be a list of 45, but in the cabinet you have 6 out of 23 cabinet ministers.
Okay,
Six.
you're talking about the cabinet now. The youngest and the oldest members of the cabinet, women, meaning Smriti Irani ji and Najma Heptullah ji.
Yes. Do
And
you?
yeah, that yes. Now you see, Najma Heptullah ji has always been part of the Raj Sabha. She's never really come down to the ground level, and so has Smriti Irani. Never been, I think, a public face. Always through the side channels. So I don't know. I wish them luck, and I hope they can deliver. And but you see, still the problem of women, and we are very doubtful if they can be able to solve it. But I hope they perform.
Ma'am, do you feel then the women's reservation bill, which still to be passed in the Lok Sabha, with this kind of majority and this kind of female representation, that they will put their entire weight behind getting that bill passed?
Well, hopefully so. The Congress, the UPA government was very keen to get it through, but somehow could not get it because. But now the BJP doesn't need any intervention. They have no other parties with them. They are independent on their own. So we wish that they give the representation, and I wish they would give 50% because that's what we are.
Right. Ms. Vichitra Mishra? Right. Ms. Mishra, if you're listening into, I think we've lost that connection. I'll just go to Ms. Talat Aziz again.
You see, I live in a very remote area. You are sitting in the best of India. I think I'm communicating to you from the worst of it. It's eastern UP next to Bihar. We have so many problems. Women are really emancipated here. The largest childbirth deaths and problems. I mean, nothing seems to happen in our kind of, where I am. So we really need, and women, and you see again in youths perform well, but we cannot give them good opportunities. And I wish a government like this, with where you are saying 25% cabinet is women, they should think of it and deliver. We'll have to wait and watch. It's too early to say just now.
Most definitely wait and watch. Ms. Vichitra, if you can hear us.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Ma'am, what do you think about the women's reservation bill? Do you think it has any chance of getting clearance this time around?
I'm glad you asked question. I was discussing something. Yeah, and I was told that without reservation, 25% of the women already, as well as these women chief ministers now. So we are really doing very well, even without the reservation. But I think later on, it's priority government. But surely later on, it will be a strong thing that.
Right. Namita, I was just thinking if we could look at, Harsimrat Kaur Badal as well, and, Najma Heptullah, they are actually, a different age group entirely, a different kind of representation of society, like you said. If we just play the graphics for Najma Heptullah, and Ms. Vichitra was also talking about that, former Vice President of the BJP, a 5-time member of Rajya Sabha, between 86 and 2012, and grandniece of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, and she's also a second cousin to prominent Indian actor Aamir Khan. She's contested the vice presidential elections in August 2007 and lost to Hamid Ansari by 233 votes. She's definitely going to represent the minority community, and probably that was the intention behind roping her in.
Right. I think, you talked about women's reservation. I think that has some kind of consensus, if I'm correct, across parties. And so I mean, one would be kind of not maybe exaggerating if one were to say maybe this is a shot in the arm for the women's reservation bill. Perhaps it may come through, perhaps it may not come through, depending on what political consensus is reached upon this. So I think the main question, if I were to sort of clear where I'm coming from in this issue, is that why are we getting excited about women getting there, getting into positions of power? Is because we expect there's a tendency, aside of the fact that women have been marginalized and hence now they should come to the fore, there's also this expectations that now certain demands pertaining to women's welfare and women's rights will come through. And like Talat pointed out, she's from Eastern UP, and there are a lot of problems in India, and I think one of the biggest problems, if you were to look at women, is the problem of women's labor.
Yes.
With more and more neoliberal policies, a lot of corporates, industry coming in, women are going to low skilled wage labor. So if we are kind of expecting these women or the broader composition of BJP's women leadership to look at these issues, perhaps not. I mean, I'm not sure if that is on their mind. Are they looking at, property rights for women in, when women get divorced? So are they going to attack those things? Marital rape, for instance, we're still a country that does not recognize that in the legal forum. Mm-hmm. So are those kind of issues going to get pushed, or these women are going to, pursue their, specific agendas as to external affairs and water resources and so on. So
right. I'll bring in Sanjeev at this point. We look at Maneka Gandhi, animal rights activist, also given women and child development portfolio, environmentalist and widow of Sanjay Gandhi, a minister in 4 governments. She has authored several books in the areas of law and animal welfare. In 1988, Menka merged the Rashtriya Sanjay Manch with the main opposition party, the Janata Dal, and became its general secretary. Menka has joined the BJP in 2004 and contested and won from Pilibhit. She has won 5 out of the 6 times that she has contested from Pilibhit constituency, and she has a lot of personal popularity in the region because she nurtures the constituency. She is well connected and she seems to have a direct grassroots appeal there. Sanjeev?
Yeah, in fact, I mean, if you look at Pilibhit, it has a lot of Sikh population as well, which helps her, and that is why we see that she has such a tremendous record. It's only once that she had to move out because she had to make way for her son, and she moved to Amla, which was going to be a challenge for her, but then she eventually went on to win. So you see, I mean, take the case of Maneka Gandhi. She is the one who actually brought animal rights to the fore, and she is that sort of a lady. If she, if any of these 6 people, if they actually decide to put the, weight in this government, they can actually push things. So, the way I see it is that this is a perfect chance for these women to actually come out into their own. So far they may be, under the shadow of XYZ, but this is the real chance. They've got the platform, and if they don't take these chances, then they are themselves to blame for it.
Right. On that note, I'll just get some last comments from Ms. Vichitra Sharma. Should we be optimistic then for these women cabinet ministers?
Exactly, but it's very important person we have
There's an audio problem. I think, Ms. Vichitra, we have a major audio problem. We'll come back to you. I'll bring in Ms. Talat Aziz. Your final comments, Ms. Aziz. Should we be optimistic then and have high expectations from these women cabinet ministers?
Why not? Why not? Optimism is the spice of life, and as far as women are concerned, I'm sure they can perform. And now that, as my earlier commentator said, that they've been given a platform, this is the time they have to do and show us. So we are, of course, optimistic. Let's wait and watch. Again, as I say, time will tell. Yeah?
Right. One final graphic we have of Harsimrat Kaur Badal, of course, representing the ally for for the BJP in Punjab. I'll ask my team to play the graphics here for Harsimrat Kaur Badal.
First time. So that day for Yogendra, for example, when Yogendra Yadav, I was in studio, I was obviously okay because
Miss Monobina, if you can hear, I think your audio is clear now. Please go ahead. Thank
Can
you
you
for
hear
being
me
so
now?
patient. Yes, thank you for being so patient.
Yeah. Okay. No, well, I had no choice, but actually, I kind of completely the conversation passed me by because of the bad audio. But I'll just say what I have to say on this whole thing. One is, of course, the question of governance and women, and I think this has been by now established that women are many times, if not most times, better performers than men in their workplaces. So I'm assuming that will be. The other thing is the question of gender. Do they actually their very presence in public spaces? Will they be able to convey something? Will they be able to feminize the political culture, which is so very misogynist and which is completely male? That I think is the main issue. Whether it was December 16th, in the aftermath of December 16th, the discourse which actually the politicians only participated reluctantly, the BJP. Now Prime Minister Narendra Modi was then in capital and he didn't really comment on the incident at all. So I would not take anything at face value. It's a good thing that there are these women who I'm sure are going to be very able performers. But as far as the feminization of politics is concerned, changing the political culture is concerned, I am doubtful. I think Smriti Irani is a bad choice for HRD. I cannot really look at her, youth as an indicator of her capabilities because I think HRD, particularly education, higher education, is a very complex area right now. Too many controversies going on in Delhi University, whether it's semester system, whether it's courses, and I think they should have had somebody much better equipped to deal with these complexities and these issues. For example, would they have chosen, given Arun Jaitley, would they have chosen Smriti Irani to head finance? So this, I would go back to my thesis about this cabinet as far as women are concerned and as far as priorities of governance are concerned, where Narendra Modi is doing a Gujarat model where economics gets precedence over social sectors like education, where I think education should have had a far, far stronger and more capable person than Smriti Irani, who really, I don't think fits the bill. Thank you so much.
That's a great point, Monobina. But before you go, what are your thoughts on the women's reservation bill and expectations from these cabinet ministers at all?
Yeah, okay. I have been witness to many sessions in Parliament when this bill has come, and I mean when this bill came, and the social justice parties took to almost physical assaults on each other to stall it. As far as Congress and BJP and left parties were concerned, all together they paid lip service. They did nothing beyond that. And I really wouldn't put my faith too much in any of these political parties, the political class in general, in contemporary India as we see them behave in public spaces. I wouldn't really trust them too much. I mean, I am going to be a bit cynical on this.
But
Right.
you know,
I can only hope that the women representatives who have come into parliament, they would do what Geeta Mukherjee of the CPI, for example, did, focus on women's reservation in a consistent, strident manner, force your male colleagues to heed your, demand, and look at it as an issue which is of as much importance as FDI in retail, perhaps more so.
Sanjeev wants to make a
but
point.
no, I'd like to differ with her just on this single point. I mean, not much credit is being given to Sonia Gandhi for actually bringing the bill in the Rajya Sabha. Otherwise, we saw the kind of scenes that were happening. People had to be physically evicted.
Right.
I spoke to a few senior leaders and they said, she's just made up her mind that this bill has to be passed in the Rajya Sabha. So, she's at least made sure that the bill will never die, Otherwise, you have to start the process all over again. So, that I think that much we should give to Sonia Gandhi for at least keeping this bill alive.
Right. I agree.
Monobina, do you also share Namita's concerns that the kind of background or kind of ideology or thought process that these women cabinet ministers actually represent, the ideology of society or the reflection that they do, is that something that is worth a thought then?
Absolutely, I would share the concerns very much so, because we saw lots of women being mobilized during the demolition of the Babri Masjid. I mean, that was also public action by women. In a way, one would have. I mean, it was a very complex issue where historians also analyzed it as participation of women in a, which was just there coming out in public spaces and being acting as agencies were, was positive. But at the same time, there is no doubt that the Sangh Parivar represents an extremely regressive patriarchal ideology and culture, which is not to say that the Congress did anything to break that, but at the same time, I think Sangh Parivar does represent something which is completely antithetical to any kind of feminist thought, ideology. They keep making these statements. Uma Bharti is famous for saying all kinds of things. Sushma Swaraj, when she was a health minister, she said that she virtually put a ban on advertisement of condoms with regard to combating HIV, which was kind of not taken well by NACO at all. There was a war between between Sushma Swaraj as health minister and NACO, and I would completely agree that this is the time to be alert and to get, if this is going to be, if these women are going to act as agents of change, then they have to take gender very seriously, and they cannot take gender in the sense Sangh Parivar does, but they have to look at it in a feminist fashion. If one, I mean, perhaps that's hoping for too much, but
Indeed, that
Right,
is
right.
really
Namita?
hoping for too much, because it's not like Monobina pointed out that a lot of women, when they came out in the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, and a lot of studies were done where feminists have grappled with the issue of, here we were, talking about women participating in public, affairs and coming out, and here they are, and it was a moment of, shock for some of the feminists, and they kind of studied these movements and they studied these women, and they said, yes, there is political agency, but for what? In contrast, there is the AIDWA, which is the All India Women's Democratic Association, which is, the women's wing of the left parties, and they do a lot of groundwork for, fighting for women's, rights in the courts, and they give them legal help. So there are different kinds of women's outfits, and we have to perhaps, in my view, move beyond the essentialization, just because they are women, they will forward a progressive agenda. I don't think so. So that kind of reservation I perhaps am sort of articulating on this platform.
Great. On that note, we'll take forward this conversation on our website and our Twitter handle. I'd like to thank all our guests for taking time out and joining us on India Post Live. Ms. Vichitra Sharma, Ms. Monobina Gupta and Ms. Talat Aziz, as well as our studio guests, Ms. Namita Kohli and Sanjeev Singh. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned and take forward your comments and views on the topic. The jury is still out. Most of our panelists believe that it's a wait and watch, and of course a lot of concerns being raised on what can we expect from these women cabinet ministers. Are they representative of women's rights, and will women's rights issues really get any kind of addressal from them, is what we'll have to wait and see. A lot riding on the Narendra Modi government and its women cabinet ministers. We'll have to wait and see. A lot of debate on that topic. Thank you so much all for joining us, and do take forward this conversation on our Twitter handle @IndiaPostLive and our website indiapostlive.com. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.